Welcome to the Art Project. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. This is the elements of art and the principles of design with no frills. I've been working in sketchbooks since 1996 when I finished college. This is a collection of all of my sketchbooks with the exception of about 5 or 6 of them. If you think this is a lot of sketchbooks, just keep in mind that I'm 47 years old and I've been working in these sketchbooks for a long time. You too will have this many sketchbooks or more if you start working in them now and you draw every day. The video you're about to watch is made up entirely of images from these 54 sketchbooks. Enjoy the video. Elements of Art and Principles of Design by Chad Brown. All images by Chad Brown and are from my sketchbook unless otherwise noted. There is a handout that you can use to take notes. Follow the link in the description below to get your copy. And as you're watching the video, push pause whenever necessary, but especially when the slide says pause, and use that time to draw an example of each element or principle in the appropriate square. Elements of Art. Elements of art are the basic building blocks of art. Little Susie touches various colors from space. That is the mnemonic that I use to remember line, shape, texture, value, color, form, and space. Line, a mark or stroke of a pen or other tool. Lines can add to the picture or be the picture. Lines could be made with most anything. In this case, I used a flashlight to draw with light in the air as I took a photograph. Pause now, and in the appropriate square with the supplies provided, draw your own example of line. Be creative, fill the space. Shape is the two-dimensional boundary formed by a line, value, color, or texture. It is either negative, meaning nothing there, or positive, the object itself. It can be organic or geometric. Pause, and in the appropriate square with the supplies provided, draw your own example. Be creative, fill the space. Texture is the tactile quality of a surface and either visual, actual, or simulated. This on the left is the fur of cheetah. It's a photograph. On the right is a sketchbook, and the sketchbook has actual textured covers. But texture can also be visual, meaning it's not actually a texture, it's not real, it's not simulating anything, it just has an appearance other than complete blank. Or you could have actual texture, such as this paint here, which is kind of globby, and you can actually touch it and feel it three-dimensionally on the surface of the paper. Or you can have simulated, like the simulated texture of the feathers or the simulated texture of the hair. Value is the lightness or darkness of an area relative to another area. Value gives you clues to the three-dimensional quality of an object. Value can be plain, like with the octopus, where it's only got 1 or 2 values, white and black, or more depth and more values, such as the flower. You can create value using a marker or an artist pen by doing stippling, hatching, cross-hatching, or scumbling. Or you can use the traditional method of blending with a pencil. Color is the quality of an object or substance with respect to light reflected by the object into the eyes and interpreted by the brain. And that's about as easy as that definition gets. Form is the three-dimensional quality of a shape. These shapes appear to be slightly three-dimensional. It's because of their form. His nose seems to have a three-dimensional quality to it. It seems to stick out and be sort of bulbous. Space is the area that art takes place in. Typically, people think of the space as from left to right or top to bottom in a picture, but it can also go deep into the picture or have very little depth at all. And in the case of sculpture, the space is actually three-dimensional. You can walk around the object. You can walk around the sculpture. You can measure the sculpture in terms of its height, width, and depth. So don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video so far, and subscribe if you haven't already. But let's continue. The principles of design. This is the aesthetic properties to consider when organizing a composition. I use the mnemonic See Me Burp to help me remember contrast, movement, emphasis, balance, unity, rhythm, and proportion. Contrast is very similar to variety. Contrast is when two areas are different from one another to make each other more visible. And variety is using different elements in the same work of art. Pause, and in the appropriate square with the drawing supplies provided, draw your own example of contrast. Be creative, fill the space. Movement. The way the viewer's eyes move around the work of art. For example, in this case, your eye looks at the bunny first, and then maybe to the words, and then to the extra large carrot off the left of the page. Movement can also be how you encourage the viewer to look at your focal point or emphasis. So your eye first probably sees the bird, and then travels down the pathway created by the stereo jack to the hand grenade. And movement can also be a sense of motion, such as this wriggling pencil. Emphasis is the focal point of a work of art. Balance. The way a work of art is visually organized. Balance can be symmetrical, asymmetrical, or radial. Symmetrical is the same on both sides of a center line. There is no center line in this picture, but there is one, an imaginary center line that goes down the middle of everything. Asymmetrical is different on either side of the center line. And radial is the same on both sides, no matter which direction you divide it through the center. Unity, when all the elements in the composition work together to create a harmonious effect. It could be argued that the elements in this piece are not working together. It's more chaotic than unified. Rhythm is the repetition of elements to create interest, unity, or movement. Pattern is a type of rhythm, but it is more regular or organized repetition of elements. Proportion, the size of objects in a work of art in relation to one another. This fountain pen seems to be rather stubby compared to most fountain pens. When you compare the length of the fountain pen to the width of the fountain pen, it appears to be out of proportion. This guy's hand is definitely out of proportion compared to the rest of his body. A proportion can actually be correct. It's still a principle of design. This camera seems to be really big compared to the people standing around looking at it. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And now it's your turn to go make some art and see if this knowledge helps you to make it better.